Who are the people we need to kick out of society? Such as this lady who went after a baby? Or this couple who, let's just call it, went a bit too wild at a Mexican restaurant? Or what about this lady who took government money and went on a fancy vacation? Number 7. The $100 debt. In Philadelphia, a shocking incident occurred where Dominique Billips, 28, was arrested following the tragic passing of a 7-month-old infant who was hit by a bullet during an alleged $100 debt over some illegal substances. The crime was caught on camera, showing a woman discharging a firearm at the infant and his parents while swearing at them. Authorities arrived at the scene after receiving reports of a firearm being discharged, but found that the victims had already left for a local hospital. It was there that they learned the infant had been hit in the leg by a round. The violence, as per police, stemmed from a small-scale contraband debt. The parents, worrying about some outstanding warrants, had hurriedly left the scene. The investigation quickly focused on Billups, who was identified and arrested the next day without any trouble. Police said they think she was targeting the baby's father, but accidentally involved the mother and infant, who happened to get caught in the middle. Thankfully, the young victim has since recovered and was released from the hospital, though there's no telling how the trauma of the event might affect the child later on. Billups faces charges of aggravated assault and firearms offenses, reflecting the severity of what she did. There's just so much wrong with this story, isn't there? Like, Billups was literally threatening someone's life over $100? Then she had to take it a step further and go after a baby? Thankfully, everyone is going to be okay, but really, with Billups, it sounds like it's just a matter of time before someone loses their life, because she's crazy. Number 6. The Tequila Drinking. In Waycross, Georgia, Joe, Boyett, and Mary Sweat faced legal consequences for their public misbehavior. They were arrested for misdemeanor public indecency after their antics at a local restaurant went viral. Joe and Mary were at the Rodeo Mexican restaurant when they decided to engage in a bizarre act involving a margarita and a funnel. We're sure you guys can figure out which way the tequila went when we say it wasn't in a mouth. Attempts to use the funnel failed, prompting Joe to toss it and continue their antics in a more direct manner. Their stunt involved Joe consuming the margarita in an unorthodox manner directly from Mary, who was positioned on all fours. This spectacle was captured on video, which then spread rapidly across social media platforms, garnering millions of views. The video's spread was initially unknown to the police until Mary reported the unauthorized sharing of the footage. Upon viewing the content, authorities took immediate action and arrested the couple. Further investigation revealed additional inappropriate behavior captured on camera, including indecent exposure, which only added to their notoriety. Rodeo Mexican restaurants strongly condemned the couple's behavior, saying that it was completely unacceptable. The establishment insisted that it didn't reflect their family-friendly values. They assured the public that any employees involved in the incident would face disciplinary actions and reiterated their commitment to maintaining a high standard of environment for all patrons. It's kind of funny that Mary and Joe acted like fools in public, then complained about the video and got arrested over it. If you don't want a video online of you doing stupid things in public, maybe don't do stupid things in public. That's just our opinion, though. Number 5. Indigenous Scams. Karima Manji, a Canadian woman, was recently sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for a fraudulent scheme where she falsely claimed her daughters were Inuit to grab over $158,000 in educational benefits. Manji's scheme was uncovered in an Iqaluit courtroom, where it was revealed that she had submitted paperwork claiming that her daughters were born to the late Kitty Noah of Iqaluit and that she was their adoptive mother. Of course, she was lying. The scheme allowed Manji's daughters, Amira and Nadia, to access funds from the Kavivak Association, an organization dedicated to supporting the Inuit community through educational and business funding. Despite Manji's claims being initially approved by Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, known as the NTI, which is the overseeing body of the Nunavut land claim, suspicions soon arose. Justice Mia Manakio of Nunavut, during the sentencing, said that Manji's actions were a clear case of identity fraud after gaining trust and said that the crime was premeditated. So she rejected the lighter sentencing recommendations, insisting that only a prison term would suffice given the severity and premeditation of Manji's fraud. The court ordered Manji to repay the stolen funds, totaling $158,000, of which she had already returned $130,000. The fraud not only financially strained the Inuit organizations, but also cast a shadow over the community's trust and the integrity of their identity verification processes. NTI responded by removing the Amira and Nadia from their enrollment list and has since strengthened their application procedures to prevent similar frauds. Outside the courtroom, Noah, son of Kitty Noah, the deceased woman who was claimed to be the birth mother of Amira and Nadia, expressed relief at the sentencing. He said he was glad that it sent a message to those who thought they could commit identity fraud within Indigenous communities. Aluki Kotirk, president of NTI, voiced concerns about the deeper cultural harm inflicted, saying that the true Inuk identity transcends mere official documentation and lies in culture, kinship, and community ties. Apparently, Manji also had a record that included a fraud conviction while working for a charity, though she had never faced prison time before this case. You'd think she had learned her lesson the first time, right? We guess some people just can't keep their hands out of the cookie jar. Number 4. Sharing more than his mind. Andrew Cobb, a 54-year-old man from Miami, Florida, was charged with aggravated battery causing great bodily harm after an incident where he struck a cyclist with a water bottle. Apparently, he was out jogging one morning and was fed up with sharing the bike-only lane with people actually on bikes, which makes total sense. Maria Galajulio, the 56-year-old victim, was cycling when Cobb, who was jogging in the same lane, threw a water bottle at her face. This caused Galajulio to fall off her bike, resulting in severe injuries, including cuts, bruises, and stitches required on her knee. Cobb immediately fled the scene as witnesses began to gather and call for police assistance. He was arrested on the following Monday. At the time of the incident, Cobb, a divorced father, was living in a $430,000 luxury condo in Miami, known for its extensive amenities like a pool and gym. His financial standing was further highlighted by his ex-wife owning a $1.9 million home in Manhattan Beach, California. Galajulio was hospitalized and voiced her distress over social media, sharing images of her injuries and expressing disbelief at the callousness of the act. Her posts garnered considerable community support, with most people discussing the need for respectful sharing of public spaces. Cobb's actions, of course, led to immediate legal consequences and public scrutiny. His previous marriage details, including a recent divorce and shared custody of an 18-year-old daughter, also surfaced, painting a complex picture of his personal life juxtaposed against his public offense. The really stupid thing about this is that Cobb was literally jogging in a lane that was designated as being for bikes only. When he was asked why he threw the bottle, he said he had been hit by plenty of cyclists in the past and was fed up with them not sharing the road. That's like getting mad at a zoo because you climbed in the tiger pen and got mauled. Obviously, to not get hit by a bike, don't jog in the bikes only lane. Number 3. The Smuggling Nurse. Yasmin Talbot, a 48-year-old nurse at Nassau County Correctional Center in Long Island, faced serious charges after allegedly smuggling a weapon into the jail. As the second highest-ranking nurse, Talbot was indicted for using her position to provide a ceramic blade and sensitive information about inmate locations to Christopher Wright, an inmate with whom she had an unauthorized relationship. This breach of security was revealed when guards discovered Wright in possession of the exact model of the blade Talbot had ordered and delivered. Prosecutors detailed how Talbot's actions extended beyond just smuggling weapons. She also manipulated inmate records to help Wright identify the location of specific inmates, compromising the safety of both inmates and jail staff. The seriousness of her actions led to such charges as falsifying business records and conspiracy. Talbot pleaded not guilty, but the situation was complicated by a previous plea agreement she had violated, related to an unrelated charge. The authorities took immediate action, with Talbot being arrested and suspended from her job. Yasmin Talbot's previous plea agreement was related to a charge of aggravated driving while intoxicated with a child, which occurred back in October of 2022. She pleaded guilty and agreed to a 1-year probation, 6 months of alcohol monitoring, and community service. Part of her agreement also stipulated that any new arrest would constitute a violation of this plea deal. A lot of corrupt stuff seems to happen with prison staff, doesn't it? You'd think they'd be a little more cautious with some of their hires. Number 2. Corrupting minors. Misty Roberts, former mayor of DeRidder, Louisiana, faced serious charges following her abrupt resignation. Roberts was charged with some pretty heavy stuff involving a minor and contributing to the delinquency of juveniles. The investigation into the 42-year-old, who was serving her second term, was prompted by a complaint investigated by the Louisiana State Police. Interviews with 2 juveniles revealed that Roberts had engaged in relations with one of them while in office. A warrant was issued, and Roberts surrendered to the police, being being booked and released on a $75,000 bond within just over an hour. Despite the charges, Roberts' attorney asserted her innocence and criticized the lack of direct communication with her prior to the arrest. He emphasized the importance of the presumption of innocence in the justice system, which is, it's never a good sign when you have to keep saying that you're innocent until proven guilty, right? Roberts announced a 2-week leave from her office on the same day the investigation started, only to resign the following day. She expressed her long-standing passion for DeRitter and the relationships built during her tenure, but stated the need to adjust her focus and priorities. Yeah, no kidding. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right here to find out how these girls scammed money from their sugar daddies. Number 1. Blowing taxpayer money fast. Canthea Miller, a 27-year-old mother of 3 from Washington, D.C., openly admitted to spending nearly $11,000 from a taxpayer-funded assistance program on a lavish 5-day trip to Miami. She indulged in a lifestyle far removed from her usual financial constraints, funded by the Strong Families, Strong Future pilot program aimed at aiding families around the poverty line. Miller opted for a $10,800 lump sum from the program instead of monthly installments of $900. With this substantial amount, she and her family enjoyed new clothes, fancy dinners, and a tour of Miami's most expansive mansions, which she believed would inspire her children towards future wealth. Not only did Miller splurge on leisure, but she also used some of the remaining funds on essentials, like bills and a used car. During the trip, Miller didn't hold back. She invested over $6,000 into the vacation, ensuring her children donned new outfits daily, and even spent $180 on a makeover to escape the look of a working, stressed mom. Her expenditures included steak dinners and new gadgets for the kids, which was vastly different from her life in a subsidized apartment, where she struggled to cover even basic expenses like food and rent. Upon returning, Miller expressed no regrets. She believed the experience taught her children valuable lessons about what hard work could achieve. Additionally, she set up a savings account with a modest goal of maintaining a $50 balance, a sign of her newfound financial awareness. Looking forward, Miller is optimistic about a new job opportunity paying $30 an hour, which she credits to the confidence gained from the program. While Miller used the program to provide an unforgettable experience for her family, other participants chose a more conservative path, focusing on debt repayment and savings. So what do you think about this? On one hand, those funds clearly weren't meant to be used in the way that Miller used them, so it's pretty easy to see that she was just using the program and having fun. We're sure she had some debt that needed clearing, doesn't everyone? And she could have been using that money to get ahead on rent, so there were probably better ways to spend it. On the other hand, it seems like Miller took some good lessons away from her experience, got a decent job, and gave her kids something tangible they could strive for. They were struggling with just basics, which means the type of vacation they had isn't an experience they likely ever would have had, not to mention all the stuff they could have never afforded. If you've ever been down the road of barely making it month to month, the people relying on you, you know how stressful that life can be. Think we need to kick her out? Let us know in the comment section. These romance scammers just don't care anything about the lives they ruin. Let's get right to it, starting with number 5, Match.com/scam. Grace Acantero lured 7 men into fake relationships on Match.com only to steal and defraud them out of thousands of pounds. Acantero posed as Amanda Jensen and used her profile on the popular online dating site to match with her targets. She developed strong relationships with her victims and spoke to at least 2 of them on the phone. After Acantero established connections with the men, she persuaded them to send her money for things like travel and other related expenses. Acantero said she first started the scam out of naivete and during a time when she was being used by the person she loved. She asked for the cash because she was in debt and needed help paying it off. But then it became too easy to just ask for more. Her victims often pushed to meet her in person, but she always had an excuse for canceling dates. But Acantero's refusal to meet with her partners didn't stop her from asking them for more money, and it didn't stop them from giving. She created documents to provide evidence that Amanda Jensen would soon receive an inheritance from a relative. And once the funds came through, she promised she'd totally pay back all the money. Acantero's victims took extreme measures to help her. One sent her almost £60,000, while another dipped into his late wife's insurance policy. Another of Acantero's victims took out a reverse mortgage on his home. She told another victim that she'd fly to a London airport and told the guy to meet her there. So he was waiting in the arrivals lounge when Amanda called called to tell him she could see him waiting, but was held up by customs. Apparently, customs needed money to release her. Thugs. The guy smelled the BS, refused to pay, and left. Alcantara used PayPal to receive the money, then moved it between 3 different bank accounts, taking chunks of it at different branches and spending it as quickly as possible. She'd stolen almost £130,000 from 7 victims and pleaded guilty to 7 counts of fraud. By the time she was arrested, the only asset she had remaining from her scam was a £6,500 car. Number 4. Shrek, the con artist. Peter Barry posed as a rich businessman to defraud lonely women out of thousands of dollars. Barry met his victims through online dating sites, where he got into fake relationships before persuading them to invest money in phony business opportunities. Barry had received a 5-year jail sentence for fraud, but was released on good behavior after 2 years. Upon his release, Barry immediately returned to his criminal activities. He attempted to disguise his identity by growing a thick beard and speaking with an Eastern European accent, which might only fool those who were familiar with him, but whatever. Due to his 6'2", 280-pound frame and warm eyes, he reminded one of his victims of Shrek. Barry might have seemed innocent initially, but he swindled $2.5 million from over 100 women. When the police tracked him down for a second time, he lived with his wife, who knew Barry as Jonathan Jones. Barry returned to jail to complete the last 3 years of his jail sentence. When the time came for his trial at Inner London Crown Court, he requested to move it 60 miles south to Lewes Crown Court due to poor air quality. He claimed that London's poor air quality would aggravate his acute asthma and make him sleep, but he was more likely trying to delay his day in court. Barry's victims came from many backgrounds and included a doctor, a lawyer, and a hedge fund manager. He used a series of fake identities, such as Dr. James Smith, Jay Smith, Jonathan Jasper John, and Taz Keaty. Barry's aliases had plausible and well-thought-out background stories, making it easy to fall for his act. Barry made up elaborate stories to convince his victims to give him money, telling one woman that he needed $14,000 for a search and rescue mission for a friend who went missing climbing in the Himalayas. Joanne Clifford lost almost $400,000 to Barry's lies when she was matched with him on Plenty of Fish. Barry went by the username Waterboy, which seems like such a weird choice since it conjures up images of the buffoon from the Adam Sandler movie when he contacted Clifford. They spent the next few days messaging on the site before moving over to texting and talking on the phone. When they met in person, he introduced himself as James Smith, a man with a doctorate in engineering working on a prototype for wind turbines. Barry explained that he had recently sold his BMW to fund the project and had to keep the details secret. A few weeks after the meeting, he called Clifford in a panic. She could hear the distress in his voice while he told her there was a big mistake at work that was being pinned on him. He needed to raise another $250,000 quickly and was $65,000 short. So Clifford offered to loan him the rest of the money, but he initially refused. Eventually, he let her send $25,000. Shortly after the incident, they went out of town for a night, which he made Clifford pay for. Then they headed to London and went on a shopping spree on her dime. Barry was supposedly broke, but that didn't stop him from shopping at the Apple store and buying a new pair of sunglasses. A few weeks passed before Barry was on the phone again, panicking about his financial struggles. Clifford sent over another $6,500 to help him get by. Barry told her that his finances were dire and he was worried he would have to lay off an employee. So Clifford wanted to help and gave him another $13,000, totally unaware of Kate Peel. Kate Peel met Barry at a kayaking club. He introduced himself as Jason Smith, and after a few kayaking trips, they started dating. Peel had inherited a significant amount of money from her partner after he passed away. Barry claimed to be a business consultant and told her about an exciting investment opportunity he knew about in IT. If she was going to go through with it, he would need an investment over the next few days. He told Peel that he could guarantee an incredible 20% return on her investment. So she transferred almost $20,000 to an account that Barry controlled. Barry claimed he also wanted to invest, but was short by $3,800. And believing that their investments would grow significantly, Peel agreed to lend Barry the extra funds. Peel eventually looked Barry up online and learned that he was a convicted con artist. So of course she freaked out, confronted him, and demanded an explanation, but he reassured her that he told her the truth and that her money was safe. So Peel gave him the benefit of the doubt, but When she lost contact with him after a few months, she went to the police because she was afraid he was missing. The police told her that they were actually in the middle of investigating him for fraud. Barry's neighbor, Christine Gearing, also fell victim to Barry's lies. They met when he moved into his apartment and introduced himself as John Jones. Gearing had divided her time between the UK and the Middle East and was considering moving back to the UK full-time and wanted to get a new job. In the meantime, Barry helped her find work doing odd jobs to help stay afloat. Barry also told her he was part of a peer consortium group where people would bring a business deal and the group would provide high-interest, short-term loans to help get started. Gearing then told Barry she had inherited money when she sold her mother's house after she passed away and was looking for an opportunity. So Barry invited Gearing to join the peer consortium group as a way to earn money on her investment. He told her about a short-term investment that she could participate in and showed her some papers but refused to leave them with her, promising to photocopy them instead. So Gearing bought in and decided to transfer $13,000 to Barry. A few months later, he came back to her with another investment opportunity. But Gearing didn't like the way he burst into her apartment and pressured her into making big investments. She eventually invested $6,400, but mainly because she wanted him to leave her apartment, which is one of the worst reasons to hand someone that amount of cash. Barry then told her he was having financial troubles and used money belonging to the peer funding group to buy a house. Barry made tons of extravagant purchases with the stolen money. He was an avid yachtsman who broke multiple world records. Detectives raided his house. They found designer clothing, sports equipment, underwater cameras, GPSs, and a Volkswagen with a personalized license plate that said K666 Yak. Barry had previously appeared in court and pleaded guilty to 19 counts of theft and fraud. During that time, he took out lines of credit and signed up for phone contracts under other people's names, convinced victims to invest in business opportunities, and asked a friend for money after claiming he lost his wallet on vacation. He had also stolen Sarah Terry's credit card details when she let him buy a kayak online using her card. He changed her PIN number and ran up a bill of $12,000. Around that same time, he took out a $20,000 loan in Terry's name to buy a Volkswagen van. Peter Barry's 4-day trial found him guilty of 7 counts of fraud and received an 8-year jail sentence. It's funny that one of Barry's victims said he reminded her of Shrek, since in the end, he looked more like a big donkey. Number 3. Fattening up. Rebecca Holloway lost over $100,000 as part of a pig butchering scam after she met a scammer on Tinder. The divorced mother of 3 was in a messy separation from her second husband when she joined the dating app. She was matched with a guy named Fred, who she thought was a French entrepreneur. Fred convinced her to unknowingly invest in this type of big scam where she lost most of her life savings. Pig butchering scams have exploded across the US. Scammers will really play the long con by quote-unquote fattening up victims with intense fake romantic relationships before they try giving any investment advice. Holloway had worked as a freelance marketing executive when she met Fred. She felt an instant connection to a man that was unlike anyone else she had ever dated. Like all these guys, he constantly sent her romantic and attentive messages, slowly reeling her in. Fred said he was a French businessman living in Philadelphia and had studied economics in college. He lived with his daughter and quickly bonded with Holloway over being a single parent. The tone of their text changed when Fred started talking about his crypto investments, which caught Holloway's interest. He seemed to understand the market well because of his economics degree and had an in-depth discussion with her about the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Fred explained that because of the bank's collapse, many people have decided to invest in alternative platforms like Bitcoin. So Holloway researched his claims to see that many news outlets talked about Bitcoin spikes following the collapse. And of course, reports were everywhere. After she was convinced, Fred directed her to the best crypto platform, and believing it was legit, she invested $1,000. The platform appeared like any other crypto platform. The only difference was its slightly unusual URL. But since Holloway wasn't all that tech savvy, it didn't raise any alarms. These schemes take a lot of time, and the first step is luring the victim with the promise of high investment returns. Holloway watched her investment grow and made $168 on 4 trades, which was a great start. As is typical in these scams, Holloway was able to withdraw her early earnings and transfer them into her bank account. Confident she found a lucrative investment opportunity, she transferred another $6,000 from her savings into her crypto account. She quickly made money on that investment too. And while this was happening, her relationship with Fred grew more serious. Although Although Fred always somehow had a valid reason not to meet in person, he would often video chat, but he was always cooking or doing something else while they spoke. So Rebecca never really got a good look at his face, but since he was on camera, it must have been enough for her to stay invested. Holloway eventually decided to cash out her entire 401k worth $100,000, and after taxes, she had $70,000 to invest. Everything seemed to be going great until she told a friend about her new relationship over dinner. The friend freaked out and told her about pig butchering scams, and that's when Holloway realized she might be caught in one. After that dinner, Holloway began questioning everything about her relationship. Fred didn't always have a French accent when they spoke. Sometimes his voice sounded so different on the phone that it was like she was talking to a different person, which she probably was. Holloway reported her case to the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, a private corporation that tries to regulate brokerage firms and exchange markets, but there was basically no chance she'd get her money back. People like Holloway aren't the only victims of these types of scams. Often the scammers are honest workers lured by the promise of legitimate jobs. They communicate with people like Holloway and receive scripts tailored to each victim. Many others have also fallen victim to this scam, like tech executive Shreya Datta, who lost $450,000. Fellow single mother, Kate, lost $80,000 in a similar scheme. Combined, Holloway, Datta, and Kate handed scammers over $500,000. Number 2. Hypnotized. Cheryl Mitchell posed as a government official and a gas and electricity worker to scam senior citizens out of their pensions. Mitchell spoke to people on their doorsteps and, with a short conversation, gained their trust enough to have them give her their bank details. She actually persuaded a 69-year-old man that he wouldn't receive his state pension if there was too much money in his account. So Mitchell took him to a bank and convinced him to withdraw $17,000, which he believed Mitchell would put in a secure account in his name. Instead, she kept the money for herself. Another victim was Iris Gordon. Mitchell knocked on Gordon's door and explained that if she changed her electricity account, Gordon would save some money on her future bills. So Gordon gave Mitchell her debit card to change her service. Mitchell then took the card and left, but brought it back a few days later. The mother of two had previously run a tax scam where the British government gave her over $72,000 in tax credits after she said she was the single mother of 8 children. Mitchell also targeted 86-year-old Alexander Hepburn when she entered into a relationship with him. During that time, she funneled $36,000 from his account to hers and claimed she needed it to care for her sister. Not only did she steal the man's money, but Mitchell also applied for a loan online in Hepburn's name. She also used his details to try and buy a $45,000 Audi and used Hepburn's credit card to put down a $1,300 deposit on a BMW. While she was in custody, Hepburn actually visited her 6 times and still sent her multiple love letters. She's currently awaiting sentencing. Number 1. Deceived by TV stars' fake love. Lydia Abdul-Malik posed as an Australian actor to con a flight attendant into believing the TV star was in love with her. The flight attendant, who's identified only as Jess, met Lincoln Lewis at work when she served him on a flight and took a picture with him. Lewis starred in Home and Away, a popular Australian soap opera. After meeting Lewis, Jess friended him on Facebook. The pair began an online friendship and messaged regularly. But Jess wasn't speaking to the real Lincoln Lewis. She was actually communicating with Lydia Abdul-Malik. The pair spoke frequently, and eventually, the fake Lewis suggested they talk on the phone. During the call, Jess said Lewis was engaged and gave her a lot of compliments. Despite never meeting in person after the first time, the pair began a long-distance relationship and constantly spoke via phone and text. But Lewis always had excuses for why they couldn't meet in person, so Jess began to doubt the authenticity of the relationship. However, Jess silenced her doubts when Lewis acted shocked and didn't understand why someone would even initiate contact just to deceive her. Still, Jess wanted proof she was talking to the real Lewis, so they arranged a Skype call. As far as Jess could tell, she was speaking to the actor, but she noticed there was a slight delay on his end. The camera would freeze for a few seconds, and then she would see him laughing and throwing his head back. Abdul-Malik had used software that takes video footage of a person and turns it into a real-life scenario. One of Jess's co-workers told her that the real Lincoln Lewis was on a flight to Brisbane. She's a stewardess, remember? Despite him telling her he was in Sydney. Jess had been talking to Lewis the entire time that he was supposed to be in the air. Eventually, Jess contacted the real Lewis to find out the truth. To his credit, the real Lincoln Lewis actually spoke with her and explained that she'd been talking to a scammer the entire time. After the disappointing conversation, Jess attempted to end the relationship with the catfish, who ended up harassing her so much she had to change her cell phone number. 10 minutes after changing her number, Abdul-Malik reached out to the phone carrier to get Jess's new number and somehow got it. Abdul-Malik then started stalking Jess. forcing her to move twice and change her daughter's school. However, Abdul Malik kept finding them and wouldn't stop calling. Unaware that Abdul Malik was even female, she contacted the police for help. She secretly recorded her calls with the catfish and eventually persuaded Abdul Malik to put money into Jess's bank account to buy a new phone. Police found Abdul Malik at the bank where they made the arrest. Having believed that Abdul Malik was a man for so long, Jess was shocked. Another victim and friend of Jess's, Emma, ended her life after she'd been catfished by Abdul Malik as well. Abdul Malik was found guilty of 6 counts of stalking and sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in prison. She attempted to appeal the ruling, but the judge upheld the guilty verdict and increased Abdul Malik's sentence to 4 years. And how about what a stand-up guy Lincoln Lewis is? You know, actors and actresses get this sort of thing all the time with fans getting catfished, but the man still had enough compassion to talk to Jess and let her down gently. What a good dude. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have as an investment for 1 year. $100,000 in Bitcoin or $100,000 in any stock you choose.